This is Ryan Abraham, Shotgun Spratling, USCFootball.com. Instant analysis from an instant classic. USC defeats UCLA 48-45 here in the historic Rose Bowl. Shotgun, I've been in this stadium for 3 of the best football games I've ever seen or ever even been around. My sophomore year at USC, Todd Moredovich and the Trojans, 45-42, beating the Bruins. Johnny Morton at the catch in the end zone at the end of the game. Absolute crazy insanity. Of course, the 2006 Rose Bowl. USC Texas didn't go as well as you would have liked, but this one is an instant classic, like I said. I think Michael Castillo, on our friend and colleague, said this one tops that. This is the greatest USC-UCLA game in the rivalry. Hard to argue with it. This one was absolutely insane, where it started off kind of clunky, then everyone's scoring, and USC gets the turnover at the end. Korey Foreman, the number 1 player in the country out of high school, been waiting a long time to make a play. I mean, it's a classic. What's your initial thoughts from this one?
I mean, it was a great game. It was the best scene I've been a part of. The other game that would compare for me in this Rose Bowl stadium wasn't USC related. It was Oklahoma, Georgia. That game was very similar, where it didn't seem like anyone was going to get a stop. And then when one team did, you felt like, okay, that's it.
Who was the head coach for that one?
That would be Lincoln Riley. Once he lost that one, though, with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. But, it felt like if you got one stop, okay, that could be it. And when UCLA gets the stop late in the game, forces USC to punt, first punt of the game, and, good job by the punt team unit there, because you wonder, first time going out there with all the kind of pressure on it.
And the special teams weren't performing so well that evening.
And the way the special teams had performed, you wondered what would happen. But good job by them, and forces a long field for UCLA to go. And USC, gets a third down, can't get off the field.
Yeah.
They get a 3rd and 5. They get off the field because Korey Foreman dropping into coverage, a play that he made earlier in the week at practice. Now, we didn't see this. However, it was relayed to us. Bryson Shaw said he saw, Korey Foreman made the exact same play during practice, a play they were practicing against and preparing for. And when he did, he said, now you got to make one in the game. He said, I got you, B. Shaw, I got you. And then Bryson Shaw completely forgot about it, especially in the mass hysteria that was on the sideline going on, after Korey Foreman's interception, after the game. And at some point, Korey Foreman finally finds him. He said, I told you. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I told you I'd get you one in the game. And he did. So congratulations to Korey Foreman. And, it's been a tough road for him. And a lot of people have said that his career's over on our message boards and whatnot, that he should, whether he should transfer or whether, he's a bust already. And the kid's obviously got a ton of talent. And, this is a great breaking out moment. And that's something that Alex Grinch mentioned, that, it's something they've seen bits and pieces, and they've been waiting for that big moment to happen, and for him to rise to the occasion, and he did. And I thought it was interesting. I pointed out I didn't have time to tweet it because everything was going crazy, but I thought it was interesting. He started at that rush-in spot to begin that last drive.
Okay.
So not Nick Figueroa, not Solomon Byrd, and this was similar last week. He started the second half at that rush-in spot. So they're giving him more opportunities because he's earning some, and you're seeing him make some plays. So, that's what you expect out of big-time players, and he mentioned that big-time players make big-time plays and big-time moments and big-time games, and that's exactly what he did. So great to see him with everything he's kind of gone through the last couple of years and people doubting him to make a big play. But, tremendous performance from him. Electric scene afterwards for USC fans, not so much for UCLA. But Caleb Williams running down the sideline, screaming, what now, screaming at everyone. Seeing Korey Foreman, the emotion that he had, the embrace that he had when Lincoln Riley. I give credit to Allison Williams. When we go back and watch the broadcast, it'll be interesting to see, when they get the interview with Caleb Williams, because she was tracking him down because he was so into the moment. And that's something that was interesting to me just watching this game, is just watching Caleb Williams on the sideline, cool, calm, and collected the entire time. There's times where Lincoln Riley's pacing back and forth when they fell behind 14-0, and Caleb Williams is on the sideline, bobbing his head, singing along with music, and just not affected by the moment at all. He comes up big, 470 yards, a career high, only 2 touchdowns, or only 3 touchdowns total, 1 rushing and 2 throwing this time, because the ground game really ate up UCLA, and give a ton of credit to those guys. Austin Jones, Raleek Brown, and Darwin Barlow stepping up for Travis Dye. So ton of things to talk about in this game, but it was just, I think the biggest takeaway from this, or the biggest thing that sticks with me, is just the scene afterwards and how excited the USC players were to beat UCLA, and the continuation of the revenge tour as they talked about it. And, Tuli Tuipulotu said, some people say this is the Lincoln Riley era. He said, for the guys that were here on this team last year, this has been the revenge tour.
Yeah.
They wanted to get, those get back. They wanted to get back those games that they lost last year, and to beat UCLA, that was a big one, especially after they put up 62 points against the defense last year.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about in this game. There's no way we're going to get to it all. Chris Trevino will have a ton of ghost notes. We're going to have all kinds of content. We got to hear from a lot of players after the game, and so many good sound bites. Brett Nealon calling the Bruins like little teddy bears and stuff, and look at us now, whatever I think the quote was. But the scene afterwards, we're going to go over that, and we're going to kind of get to some of the thoughts on offense and defense and all that, and special teams maybe. You probably don't want to hear that one. But I was down here in the end zone of the Rose Bowl, like when the players are rushing over. I got to see Jordan Addison up on the ladder leading the Trojan Marching Band with the sword. I asked him about that. He said it was like a surreal moment. He saw other players do it. He's like, I could check that one off my list. But when they're playing Tusk and everyone's singing all the words, and the players coming over, and when the Trojan Knights brought over the victory bell that was painted blue because UCLA won last year, the players taking turns ringing the bell, and Caleb Williams coming around, and all the fans going crazy. I was just right in the middle of it, like filming all it. So we'll put some stuff up on USCFootball.com. It was absolute anarchy in the end zone. You could tell there was just a lot of emotion. Some of the revenge tour, the new players too, they just really wanted this one. I think they wanted it for the rivalry, but really they wanted to go to the Pac-12 Championship game. But it was a crazy scene. The fans were going nuts, and the players were kind of cheering along with them.
Yeah, it was a great scene in the end zone, and it's what college football is all about.
Yeah.
And Lincoln Riley even mentioned at the very end, after all the questions were asked, he stopped, gave a little pause, and said, I want to say right now basically that West Coast football is alive and well, but fans need to support it. Was basically his message. It was a great atmosphere tonight, and it was fun to watch. It was fun to be a part of, fun to be on the sideline for it, just the back and forth nature of it. And he's been a part of these type of games, but it takes two teams being really good for it to happen. So it was great for this, for this rivalry, for these two teams to both be in the top 20 to play this game. And it was a classic. Just like you said, it was great theater the entire time, and especially after the game. With the players going crazy, the bell ringing. I don't think I've ever seen so many, fours down, because all the USC players like to do that. I don't think I've ever seen as many photo shoots. Players just asking, hey, can you take a photo with me? And so they can throw up the fours down. Caleb Williams was basically bouncing around to different little photo opportunities. Everyone wanted to take a photo with him. And these are his teammates. This is not fans coming up to take a photo. This is like, I got to get a photo with Caleb, and Lincoln Riley taking a photo with him, both standing in front of the scoreboard, so you could see the scoreboard in the background. I'll have that photo up later. But it was a very interesting and fun scene to be a part of, and that's what college football is all about. That was the biggest takeaway for me. We try to stay impartial, but you get in the middle of it, and you can't not be happy for the guys that have endured so much in their careers. And some of the guys like Brett Nealon, he said this is one of the reasons why he came back, as a 6-year senior. And I asked him, could you have ever envisioned going to the Pac-12 Championship, when you're in the midst of everything that they went through last season, going 4-8? And he said, no, not at all. He said, but they came back for this, and now they punched their ticket into the Pac-12 Championship. They'll go to Vegas. They still got a big game next week. Yeah. They have higher goals even than Vegas, but, to be able to get to the championship. And I asked Shane Lee actually about building that championship culture. That's what those transfers, when they came in, that's what they wanted to do. And you can feel it. You could feel it down here in this end zone, the brotherhood, the love that they have for each other. And that's exactly what Shane Lee he said it's the brotherhood that they've built, and that's why they've been able to play so well. And Kyle Ford mentioned it, that's why so many guys can step up, because of how much they trust each other, how much they've seen each other make plays in practice. So when Darwin Barlow comes up, has barely touched the ball until last week all season, and suddenly in the fourth quarter, he's the guy you're giving the ball to down in the red zone. He's just two really nice runs to get in the end zone. Whether it be Kyle Ford, who people thought was done because of 2 ACL injuries, whether it be Korey Foreman, who people wanted to write off because he didn't have early career performance. So they said the reason why you see those players step up is because they all trust each other, they all love each other, and the bond that they built, which is, again, it's been the most baffling thing this entire season to me. that they were able to put together this group with so many mercenaries of transfers, and people would normally go, okay, that it's not going to work. You can't throw that many people together, but they found a way, and they all play for each other, and they all love each other, and they all care for each other, and you could really feel that down here in the end zone. The excitement of winning, but how much they wanted to celebrate with each other. I thought that was probably the biggest takeaway from this game for me, is that, just feeling that environment around those guys.
Yeah, they talked about this rivalry a lot, and it was different when you'd hear from players that were on the team last year. If you heard from players that were on the defense last year that gave up 62 points, and the new guys too. And Brett Nealon was like, could you expect going from 4-8 to the miserable season last year to this? Kyle Ford, the same sort of thing. He was coming back, like you said, off the injuries, and gets a touchdown in that last game. Like, you get a little spark there, but didn't get a whole bunch of run early on. And I asked him about making catches in bunches. He was doing that, and gets the maybe one of the better catches you're going to see, that really important touchdown catch that he had. And he talked about kind of walking through that play. But offensively, they ran the ball really well. I thought Austin Jones, he said he wrote number 26 on his wrist and or on his hand, and they were playing for Travis Dye. He was a big part of this. He came out as a honorary captain out in his little scooter, so I think that was an important part of it. He couldn't play, but you could tell they were running hard. When Barlow came in, he was just bowling people over. He put a shoulder into a UCLA defender at the goal line and went forward and knocked him down. But for Caleb Williams to throw for 470 and still he was up in like the 76% range or so. I didn't look at the final stats. Jordan Addison, who we just saw get a few plays last week and then come out and just have an absolute monster where he had 170 something yards receiving, absolute monster game from him. I talked to him this week at practice, and he was sort of like, I'm going to be back. He told us where he was going to put on a show, and he absolutely did. But this was it wasn't the best night for anybody, but I think they just kind of put it all together, starting in that 14-0 hole where they moved the ball, missed field goals, interception, a really bad interception from Caleb Williams, but they got it rolling again. I think Lincoln Riley said it best, where they were down 14-0, and it didn't matter. He told them
didn't flinch at all.
He told them the story about, it was basically when he said at the old place, Oklahoma, when they were down 28-7 to Texas, he goes, we could be down that way, and they were down early, but they were still able to overcome it, and just an absolute offensive explosion from Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and I think the first 2 touchdown deficit they faced this season, so you kind of wonder, how is this team going to respond when something like that adversity in an emotional setting? How are they going to do it? And, they were fantastic. They came back and made some plays. The defense struggled to make stops in the first half. They got one of the very first drive, 3 and out. And you say, okay, but the first drives, you kind of always throw those out in a game. It's the new stuff that coaches put in. What do they do after that? And it was 3 straight touchdowns for UCLA. And you start wondering, okay, is the defense going to get any stops? And then that segment at the end of the first half where Mekhi Blackman intercepts a pass, and then Shane Lee intercepts a pass. And, Dennis Lynch missing 2 field goals, coming up short on the one that was, called a timeout, coming back and making a 49-yarder. Yeah. And that gave them some momentum going into the half. And Lincoln Riley said that was that surge really kind of gave them a boost and gave them something going into halftime, and they were able to build on it going into the second half. And so, a little confidence just at halftime to know, okay, we can make some stops. Yeah. We can get some stops as well. And they create 4 turnovers in this game, including Tyrone Taleni. The only sack they got was a sack fumble and recovered by Latrell McCutcheon. He was trying to get that scoop and score. You could tell he was going for that one. But you get Mekhi Blackman with an interception. You get Shane Lee with one over the middle, and then Korey Foreman finishing off.
Yeah, and I think you needed, you look at the Oregon State game, I think 4 interceptions in that one. It was a really close, a 3-point game. Another 3-point game here, and you get 4 turnovers from the defense. We know it's not a defense that's going to force a lot of 3 and outs. They just needed to make some of those big defensive plays. And the way it was going, it was kind of the offense that was screwing up early. Like, USC should have had a bigger lead. They got some stops early, and then you could have put some distance there. So, and then that the right before halftime to not give up a touchdown to UCLA, get a couple turnovers, miss a field goal, come back, be able to kick another one, only give up 1 field goal after halftime. So that middle 8 where UCLA's been good and USC's been good too. That was important. And then you get the turnover, you force you can score another touchdown, take the lead for the first time, and then push it to the 10 points right away. That was big, but they could have had a bigger lead earlier. So the defense kind of hung in there, even though, they were giving up a lot of yards. Not as many yards as USC. What was it? 600 something yards. It was insane.
So really, especially in the first half, UCLA's defense looked a lot like what USC has been all season. give up a bunch of yards, but if you can create enough explosive plays on the defensive side, and they got a couple sacks to force field goal attempts. USC got in the red zone. The first 2 times in the red zone, they got no points out of.
Yeah.
Missed field goal, and they failed on fourth down, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So, they were able to create. They were, following the USC game plan, but the middle late is what changed the entire game. You mentioned that UCLA hasn't really necessarily been great in the middle late. USC has been much better, and this was the difference maker, I think, because when you look at it, UCLA got the ball with, I want to say, like 5.5 minutes to go. And if they score right there, I think they're going up, but, I think it was 21-10, I want to say at the time. I'm guessing on the numbers right here, but they have an opportunity to really take a stranglehold because they're going to get the ball back after the half too. And if they score on that one, and this was at the point where they had scored 3 straight touchdowns, they had 3 straight touchdown drives. So you think, if it's 35-10 or whatever the score that USC had there, then suddenly this is a completely different ball game. It may be over, but USC creates a turnover. They give the ball back, create another turnover, and then in the second half, you start it. UCLA drives the ball, but they have to settle for a field goal. And then USC, marches down and scores, on the Jordan Addison touchdown and gives them their first lead of the game. So that swung the entire momentum of the game because after that, UCLA was chasing the entire time. And that was the difference, because you felt it throughout the middle of the third quarter through to the last 3 or 4 minutes is like, is anyone going to get a stop? I was talking with Jordan Moore on the sideline. I was like, when it got to about 10 minutes, I was like, is this the point in the game where if one person gets a defensive stop, first one to get a defensive stop wins, because you feel like both teams are going to score on offense the rest of the time? And when USC had a punt, that's the thought that went through my mind. It's like they're in trouble right now because they haven't been able to slow UCLA down, especially late in the game on defense. You're worn down. Yeah. You've been giving up a bunch of points. It's not like you've got a lot of hype around behind you. And, they were able to answer the bell. They got off the field because, Shane Lee, I think it was, said, what was the mindset going out there? He's like, get off the field. Yeah. No matter what, get off the field. And they did that with Korey Foreman, getting the interception, and then the place going, or the sideline going crazy for Korey Foreman. He was still getting love from all his teammates when the final whistle was being blown. Like, he was like the receiving line on the sideline to congratulate him. It was like 3, I think USC took 3 knees. I was trying to get photos the entire time, so I didn't see any of the knees or what was going on there. But the entire time, everyone was showing him love. And I think that shows you, one, the camaraderie on this team, like we talked about, but also the hard work that he's put in, and that's what multiple people talked about after the game as well. People have been waiting and waiting for him to have a breakout, so he had a couple nice plays last week. To build on it this week is a positive sign going into the big stretch run here of 2 more games, or 3 more games at least. And where that third game could be, as far as a bowl game, as far as a playoff game, whatever it may be, if he continues to step up, that is just a big boost for the defense to have an extra pass rusher, because you see what Tuli Tuipulotu is able to do, helping shut down Zach Charbonnet. Alex Grinch was asked, how were you able to slow him down a little bit? And he said, Tuli, in one word. He's like, I have to say Tuli. That was it. And, because they moved Tuli Tuipulotu around in different areas. They had him standing up as a linebacker a lot, played a lot of dime defense with him standing up beside Shane Lee and doing some different things like that. The defense did enough to win the game. And that's, in a 48-45 game, you don't want to give too much praise to a defense, but they did enough to find a way to get a win.
Yeah, it looked a little weird to see Tuli kind of roaming around. Didn't get a sack. Tyrone Tolina was the only guy that ended up getting a sack there, and that was a sack fumble, a huge play, obviously, that USC punches it in soon afterwards. Austin Jones had a couple really nice, just gliding into the end zone. One, he little hopped into the end zone. There were some really easy scores.
I'm mad that I missed the photo on that one because I was faked out by the motion that they had with Mario Williams. So I'm upset at that one, but I got him to celebrate.
Yeah, he had a little hop in there, which was nice. But yeah, and when you get those kind of big plays from the defense, that's what you need. Special teams, not as special, and Lincoln Riley was talking about it. He's like, it impacts the result. I mean, maybe one of the worst. There's 2 missed field goals. Obviously, that's bad. Even if you're going for the field goals, not sure if you should have done that. And then, poor Dennis Lynch has to go out and kick a field goal because they pretty much were going to kick a field goal again, but then it's the end of the half, and that's the only chance you got. So he had to kick a field goal. He nailed that one. It was 46-yarder, I think, or 49-yarder, whatever. 49, which was really nice. But he talked about trying to these pooch kicks. They tried to get a lot of air under it, which they didn't. You're giving UCLA near midfield position, and one of the plays where USC's up 10. They do the kickoff only goes to midfield, and UCLA scores in one play. You're like, that is not what you wanted. The special teams start with a play. And then at the end of the game, when you kind of need a score to go ahead, they started their own 5-yard line because they screw up. They tried a fair catch, they screw it up, and then well, you can't advance, and then you're ended up at the 5-yard line. So there was just so many bad plays on special teams. But the offense, and in some cases the defense, was able to overcome them. But man, it's one of those things where it has to be addressed at some point, because it's been pretty bad.
I mean, you could look on the offensive side and say the same thing. It just, there were so many points left on the board. There's so many yards left on the field for the special teams side, but on the offensive side, there were points out there that they just didn't, and they still put up 48 points, which is kind of crazy. All those red zone opportunities that they didn't capitalize on. But the special teams, again, has been a bother for them, and against a better team. Not to say that UCLA is not a good team, but a better team, that's the type of thing that costs you the game.
Yeah.
Because if you have to start at your 5-yard line, does that extra 20 yards end up being the difference in you having to kick a field goal versus scoring a touchdown later in the drive? So on that drive, that's the drive USC ends up having to punt on.
Yeah.
So how much does that 20 yards change the play calling on that third down that Caleb Williams gets sacked on, when maybe if you're 20 yards further up the field, you're setting up for either a field goal, so you don't take the sack, or you're going for it on 4th down, so you run a different play. Those things all play into it. And special teams has been a bother for USC, but it's hard to just jump on the special teams and criticize them with so many dramatic performances from other people.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now USC's 10-1, 4-8 last year, if you guys remember. 10-1 now. Going to the Pac-12 Championship game, as we're recording this, Oregon and Utah are playing, so that's going to help determine who the opponent that USC will be playing in Las Vegas, December 2nd, Friday on December 2nd. They still got Notre Dame coming up this week. Tennessee loses, open up, TCU almost lost, open up some opportunities. If USC, wins the next 2 games, still an opportunity to go to the college football playoff, which is absolutely insane. I don't think USC fans should worry about that too much. It's more about, hey, you get to go to the championship game, try to win a Pac-12 title, maybe get revenge over Utah, maybe get some past revenge over Oregon, something like that I think is important. But it's a big result just knowing that there was all these scenarios where there could have been like 5-way tie. No more. USC takes care of that. They're going to the Pac-12 championship game. And I think that's what these players, especially the new guys, were focused on more than just the rivalry. But I think being in this building, I mean, they all talked about like how crazy it was. I think it means a lot to them that way too, but really the result is important for USC, for the fans and the players.
Well, the players, the transfers that come in, you know about rivalries. You played in other ones, high school, at your other stops. But then when you get in the environment, you start feeling the emotion too, and that's when it all hypes up, and that's when you see some freshman mistakes. Raleek Brown dropping the kickoff. The emotion gets to some players, and I think Raleek Brown ends up learning from that and growing from it. But you get into it and you start feeling the rivalry. You start feeling all the emotion, the crowd yelling at you and cursing at you the whole time when you're coming out. Those are the type of things that you start getting into the rivalry, and when you win it, that's when the emotions come out a little bit more. And so USC throughout the week was very even keel. They were not going to make any statements, but you could tell that they read everything else that was said by Brett Nealon's statements. Like, we weren't going to say anything, but they're the little teddy bears now and saying we run LA. So those statements let you know they heard everything, whether they were going to say anything themselves. So they made their way into the game on an even keel, and the emotions rose as the game went along. And Brett Nealon especially was one of the guys just super fired up on those touchdowns in the second half. He was going kind of crazy over on the sideline and whatnot. And I think the transfers, you start seeing your teammates, how excited they are, how pumped they are. And again, it goes back to that camaraderie, that brotherhood. You want to win for them. You want to help them with that revenge story. You may not have been a part of it, but I'm going to go help him out. If he's fighting somebody, I got to jump in and fight with him too. And so that was a big part of it to get the outcome. And now you build on that and you go, you play Notre Dame in another rivalry game, and then you get to the Pac-12 Championship and you see what goes from there. You mentioned that Tennessee lost. I didn't know that one yet.
Okay.
So I haven't seen many of the scores, saw the early games.
Tennessee got destroyed.
Oh, wow. By
South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, the old Oklahoma quarterback.
I'm sure Lincoln Riley will send him a gift package or whatever. But otherwise, it was escape Saturday. And USC had to do the same thing. You saw Michigan, you saw Ohio State, you saw TCU, all late game, find a way to win. USC was able to do that as well. Can they continue to do that in the next 2 weeks to give themselves a chance and see if someone else gets destroyed by a South Carolina or someone random out there? You just never know with college football. That's the way the things play. But USC, I think it's going to be really important for them how much emotion there was tonight, especially after this game. how do you get back to that even keel to be able to come back out against Notre Dame and don't come out flat?
Yeah. Well, one thing we do know is USC will be playing for the Pac-12 Championship in Las Vegas, December 2nd. And worst they can do after a 4-8 season last year is 10-2 in the regular season, and will be playing for the Pac-12 title. We got to wrap it up. It's a little chilly out here. There's so much we could do. We could go on. It could be a whole podcast. We could go on for hours, I think, on this, but we'll have to do that later. For Shotgun Spratling, I am Ryan Abraham. Make sure you check out USCfootball.com for more.